I've explored this, speaking with friends on the show, um, about emotional and mental health, but I actually never thought about the delineation between those two words, because everyone would say they've done meditation to be able to control their emotions. They've done journaling. They've done all of these things. And what I think you're saying is that the path through is more acceptance of those emotions to get through to the other side. Is that around the lines?
Yeah. I mean, we have accepting it is a big word and it's easier said than done
Right.
because we unconsciously resist anything negative, anything that doesn't feel good, any uncomfortable emotion, we resist it. We don't allow it to do what it wants to do, right?
Right.
And so you have to realize what I realized, we every event in our life that we couldn't handle, that was uncomfortable, we were embarrassed, we were feeling lost inside, lonely, sad, whatever it was, if we didn't handle it, if we jumped into our head, or we escaped the moment, or we watched a movie, or we scrolled on our phone, or whatever it was, if we coped with it and we didn't handle it, it's stored in us, it's still inside of you,
Right.
it's still in your nervous system, it's a suppressed emotion, and that's what is causing all this mental health issues.
Havoc.
It's like it's a fire inside of us that activates, and it causes smoke. So what people do is they try to battle the smoke, the thoughts, the mind. But you're
Right.
not getting to the root. The root is the emotion that's inflaming this. And there's a relation to mind and emotions, don't get me wrong, but it's the conditioning of the mind that holds us in it. But the deeper root is these emotions. So if we can fully process these emotions, like fully, they release for good. They're gone forever. And if you do that, if you're dedicated, I don't even like the word dedicated, if you're devoted to that and know how to do that, which is what I did, what I teach people, is it will release. And this stuff, you won't have the chronic anxiety, you won't have the depression, you won't have the panic attacks anymore if you resolve that.
That's very interesting because my first episode of the show was my experience with MDMA-assisted therapy, and in that, not to go back into that story, but in that, halfway through, I started just sobbing and mourning the loss of my grandparents, because I was overseas when both of them died. I'd never had a chance to go home to the funeral and all those things, and I would have told you mentally, logically, that I missed them, how important they were to me, how much I loved them, um, what a loss it was, like all of these things. But it wasn't until I guess the amygdala was able to be quiet, and I could face how devastating it was. And I think it felt like 15 minutes, but I think they told me I was crying for like 2 or 3 hours. And in the middle of that, I could feel what was like, it felt like an organ or an intestine was tied like a hose, and then it was finally unleashed or untangled, and then there was more blood flow. It was the fucking craziest feeling. And so it sounds like the thing that you're teaching or taught yourself to do, we'll get into that, is along those same lines, but maybe takes more work than someone going to ayahuasca or MDMA therapy, which is all the rage right now.
Hmm.
And I've been talking a lot about because I'm in the midst of trying to write a nonfiction book, and one part of it is, I'm talking about emotional suppression, especially what we teach to boys as we turn them into men. And
Hmm.
one analogy that I'm kind of mixed. I need to edit it, but like that we have this dungeon inside us, and any emotion that we feel, we banish into this dungeon that has this dragon that we keep locked up, and the dragon just gets fuller and fuller, and we pretend that it's safe, locked behind that gate, but eventually it's going to burn your whole life down.